Hey everybody, Mark Yaxley here for Strategic Wealth Preservation, SWP. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine, ex-Marine fighter pilot, author, investor, and precious metals guru, Mr. Bob Moriarty. You're going to want to hear what Bob has to say today, and stick around until the end of the interview when Bob gives his top stock pick. Bob Moriarty, welcome back to Inside the Vault. It's been a long time, my old friend. It is really good to see you. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts today.
Good deal.
So Bob, first thing I wanted to ask you, simple question. What are you talking about to your followers these days? What are you writing about? What are you focused in on?
That's a really good question. I'm going to scare you a little bit. Writers, of course, are always looking for something interesting to write about or to talk about. And it's really kind of scary. Afghanistan has proven what a total fiasco our military is. I mean, that's embarrassing. We're going to have a lot of dead Americans after the pullout, more than died during the war. We gave $80 billion worth of weapons to people who don't like us. I personally see a financial collapse soon, in the next 2 months. The stock market is totally overblown. I think it's going to be a repeat of 1929. The market peaked in early September 1929, and then it declined into late October, and it started the crash. From September of 1929 till July of 1932, the market declined 89%. There are very few investors alive today who have seen a true waterfall decline, but it's coming. Okay, the entire world has been living beyond its means, really, since we went off the gold standard. Everybody's living on borrowed money, and they're not going to be able to pay it back.
So, is there a common thread here between Afghanistan and an upcoming financial crisis, in the sense that these things are predictable, yet we're not prepared for them somehow?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's what's crazy, and I'm really upset. There was a Marine Corps lieutenant colonel that came out and said that the Secretary of Defense, Austin, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Miley, should both resign. These guys knew we were going to leave Afghanistan. Was there some kind of mystery about it? What were they going to do with the weapons? What were they going to do with the people that we needed to protect? What were they going to do with the Americans? They literally left one air base in the middle of the night, didn't tell anybody. They didn't even tell our allies, okay? The British are absolutely furious because they weren't even told the U.S. was leaving. So here's what I think, and this is an interesting analogy. We're not going to know for a year or two if this is correct or not, but I think it is correct. You need some things fixed in life. You need a fixed length to measure. You need a fixed volume for liquids. You need fixed temperatures, and you need fixed money. When you do not have fixed money, you have no frame of reference. You don't know what value is. And from 1970, and actually the peak earning of the average person in the United States was around 1970. And the standard of living has declined significantly since then. And it's been held up by borrowed money. But borrowed money makes everything more expensive. When that money has to be paid back, Americans are going to find out, hey, wait a minute, we haven't got any money. We've still got 13 million people on unemployment, and the extra bonus money from the federal government stops on Labor Day. So we've got some bad times ahead of us. But here's the key. The financial system is in chaos. The medical system, the whole COVID thing is absolute rubbish, okay? They've been lying through their teeth for a year and a half. If you lock down for 2 weeks, that'll flatten the curve. If you put masks on, that'll kill the COVID. If you have social distancing, if you take the jab, well, guess what? all of the things they said to do, none of them worked. Okay. So our medical system is in total chaos. Our financial system is total chaos. The military cannot even execute, well, we're going to leave Afghanistan. Do you think there's anything we should plan on in advance? And I put it all down to not having a standard. We don't know what money is. Between noon today and noon tomorrow, how many times do you think the Canadian dollar will change its value? Give me a number.
How many times will it change its value? That's a good question. You're putting me on the spot, but I mean, it fluctuates like it fluctuates all the time, constantly. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
It could be 1,000. It could be 5,000. It could be 10,000. How do you conduct business if you don't know what the value of your currency is? Here's the deal. Depressions are necessary because they cure the problems that have been created over years and years and years and years. When everybody goes out and their standard of living is based on borrowing money, you just can't do that. That's not an economy. All of the solutions that the Canadian government has done and the American government has done have actually made the situation far worse. It takes 2 to 6 months to get assays done in Canada. I know companies that haven't had assays for 6 months. I know companies with over 3,000 assays. When you drill, you need that information desperately to plan on what you're going to do next. And these guys just are not getting that information on a timely manner. And the reason they're not getting it, guys can make more money sitting home on the couch watching sports, drinking beer, than they can working in a prep lab. So we have introduced an enormous amount of instability in the system. Have you ever seen a spinning top?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Entropy says that all things decline over time. Everything gets more chaotic. When a top is just about to spin out of control, okay, that's exactly where we are in the financial system. Now, I personally, it's just my opinion, I think that it's going to be very similar to the Taliban taking over Kabul. It's going to happen so fast, everybody's going to be astonished and everybody's going to say, damn, why didn't somebody warn us? And of course, my answer is going to be, well, I've been warning you for years. Don't be surprised.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this. We've touched on it, but I just want you, maybe if you can elaborate a little bit more. You've actually written a book in the past that I've read, and I really enjoyed it, called Nobody Knows Anything. Learn to Ignore the Experts, the Gurus, and Other Fools. So I think you were hinting at this earlier when you referenced the military. These, in that context, they are the gurus, they are the experts, yet they totally bumbled the Afghan pullout. You know, we've got the financial experts that don't seem to be giving clear enough warning. I mean, you see some pundits warning that the stock market is overvalued, but Main Street seems to be under the impression that profits will forever rise, that the stock market will always go up and you can always cash in and make a lot of money. And a lot of people have been. So I wanted to just circle back to the book and understand, what is the basic premise of Nobody Knows Anything? What premise are you working off on that in that book?
There was a guy named William Golden, and he was actually the guy that wrote the Princess Diaries. And if anybody has not seen that movie, it's a great movie because it's so funny. And I took a quote from him and I put it on one of the inside pages. He said, nobody knows in Hollywood what's going to succeed and what's not going to succeed. And sometimes we spend tens of millions of dollars on movies that are total flaws, okay, that don't work at all. It was a great quote, and that was the theme for the book. Now, I think the Kabul thing is a perfect analog for what's coming. We knew we were going to pull out. Okay, Trump said we were going to months and months and months ago, and then Biden comes in. Biden says by September 1st, we're going to be out completely. Who in the military, who in the chain of command didn't understand there are things you need to do? How do you get your people out? What do you do about the equipment? What do you do about your allies? Who do you talk to? Who do you negotiate with? They didn't do any of that. It's like, oh, damn, we need to get some airplanes over there and get all these people out. It's a Chinese fire drill.
Well, that's a perfect transition. So I want to ask you this question, Bob, and it's a really simple question. Now, you've mentioned that the system is flawed in many, many ways. You know, if you look at it, the financial markets, the military, you know, leadership in general, not only in the United States, in Canada, and a lot of countries around the world. Maybe that will lead to this answer, but I want to hear it from you. It's a simple question that investors probably want to know. Why does Bob Moriarty hold physical precious metals?
Because of the alternatives.
Being poor, physical precious metals is the best option out there?
Well, let me put it this way. It's the least bad option. The alternative is either real assets or paper assets. And when you have a world as chaotic as we have today, the bond market's about to jump off a cliff. When it does, just kiss the economy goodbye, kiss the stock market goodbye. We need a tiny pin, okay? It could be Tether, okay? Tether is a $62 billion fraud in cryptocurrencies, okay? It is fraud. It has been demonstrated it's fraud. It's run by crooks. And they supposedly have a $62 billion line of credit. Well, that's bullshit. They don't have a $62 billion line of credit. Nobody would give them a line of credit. I wouldn't give them $100 line of credit. So you could sit in paper. You can own stocks. The S&P's at all-time high. The Dow's at all-time high. NASDAQ's at all-time high. Why not go in and buy right at the top? And that way you can catch the collapse, okay? Nobody's sitting there saying, oh, by the way, you don't want to buy at the top. Well, I put it in the book. You want to make money? Sell at the top, okay? You want to make money? Buy at the bottom when things are cheap. And we're going to get into this, of course, too, because we're going to talk about gold stocks. But here's the reason I own physical gold and silver. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the banks. I don't trust Bill Gates. I don't trust Fauci. These guys are liars. They're frauds. And bad things are going to come. When those bad times come, I want to be prepared. I can put my hands physically on a year's worth of assets in probably about 5 minutes, okay? Everybody needs to do that, okay? You don't have to like gold and silver. I'm not one of those people who worships it. I'm not one of these guys running around saying they're suppressed and there's a conspiracy. That's bullshit too. In relative terms, gold and silver are actually expensive compared to what they were 30 or 40 years ago. However, they're real, they're tangible, you could hold them, you can put them in your pocket. When I was a kid, we carried around silver dollars. And when you pulled a silver dollar out of your pocket, you knew you had a real asset. Now we've got these slugs, okay? And that's all they are. The coins today, literally around the world, they're just ugly. So I hold physical precious metals because I want something that's going to retain some value.
So let's talk now about stocks and mining stocks in particular, because you mentioned the stock market, but I wanted to know, because you write a lot about mining stocks. You've been in that field, that space for 20, 30 years now. What is the differentiation in your mind between your physical precious metal holdings, that part of your precious metal portfolio, and your mining stocks? Do they play a different role? Do you look at them differently? How do you balance the two?
Absolutely. you need to have a hierarchy of value. And a lot of that is going to depend on what you got in the way of resources. If you got $5,000 total assets, you should have $1,000 or $2,000 probably in silver coins. Okay. If you got $50,000 total assets, you should probably have $10,000 in physical gold and silver and $40,000 in shares. The beauty is if gold goes up 50%, the mining stocks go up tenfold. And that is absolutely going to happen. I was in the market. I was buying physical gold as early as 1968 when I was in Vietnam. I owned it right up until December or January of 1980. I said, all these people that I've been telling for years that they need to own gold and silver, they're all in buying gold and silver, and that scares the shit out of me. But the metal stocks right now, they're cheap. They're incredibly cheap. And I think we've got a tradable low in place. Gold is food. Okay. If you got British sovereigns or French francs or Swiss francs or Italian lira in gold, you can buy food. And you may want to. And it may be the only way you can buy food. The purpose of having physical gold and silver is not to see how much money you can make, it's to survive. That's your survival asset. But to make money, you want to be in the mining stocks. And when I say mining stocks, I mean all resource stocks. We are going to go from a world of paper assets that we've been in since at least 1980 to a world of real assets, which is what we're going to go into. And you're going to have a lot of stocks that go up 50-fold, 100-fold. So it's an opportunity to make a lot of money. Now, if you got $1 million, you need $100,000 in physical gold and silver and $900,000 in resource stocks.
I like it. Okay, thanks for clearing up your views of the two, because I think for some investors, they tend to look at exposure into precious metals as the same thing, whether I'm in mining stocks or whether I'm in physical gold. You kind of hear that quite often. So it's interesting that physical precious metals is kind of your wealth insurance. It's your livelihood. It's your go-to.
But no, you just used exactly the right word. It's your insurance policy. You would not own a car. You wouldn't own a house without having the insurance. Now, how many Americans or Canadians have insurance on the money they've got in the bank? What happens when the banks close? The banks are going to close. The banks are functionally bankrupt now, and the banks are going to close. What do you do then? Go to Bitcoin? Bitcoin doesn't even exist. It's a concept. It's not anything real.
So circling back, just to close your thoughts, I wanted to ask you about, you talked about resource stocks, not just gold and silver stocks. I wanted to ask you, are there any stocks that you are looking at right now and you think are a good buy, especially you said considering that they're probably undervalued right now?
It's funny you say that because I've got another book called Basic Investing in Resource Stocks. And in the book, I say, if you want to make money, here's how to do it. When things are at yearly lows and nothing else has changed, you should be buying stocks. And when they get to yearly highs or it starts getting frothy, you should sell. I am convinced, and I'm adamant about this, I'm convinced you have to trade stocks. You cannot buy a stock and hold on to it forever. One of the best stocks that I've had a return on in the last year is Newfound Gold. They're up in Newfoundland. They've had extraordinary success. Stock went from, I think I was in at $1.05, something like that. It went to $13. Okay. If you get that kind of return, you have to lighten up. And I did. And it went from $13 down to $8. Now, nothing has changed except the price of the stock. It's still an extraordinary company in a fairly safe jurisdiction, even though Canada is run by a brain dead idiot. But It's a good stock. At 13, it was expensive. At 8, it's cheap. And there are dozens of examples of stocks that there is nothing wrong with, but they're at yearly lows. If you buy them at the yearly low and sell it anywhere near the yearly high, the range in gold resource stocks is about 290% per year. Now, if you could pick up 25 or 50% every year, you would be doing extraordinarily well. And it is as simple as buy when things are cheap and sell when things are dear. Everybody wants to do exactly the opposite because they want to be part of the herd, but the herd is who you're going to make your money from.
Bob, excuse me, Bob, as always, great advice. We really appreciate the time you spent with us today. I'm going to mention the 2 books that were discussed today in the description for this video. So if anyone wants to go onto Amazon, I think that's the best place to buy your books. That's where I bought copies of your books before. I will post them so people can go and check them out. I recommend them. They're short, concise reads, which I enjoy. I know you're a straight to the point kind of guy. Bob, thanks again for your time. It's always a pleasure seeing you and hearing your thoughts on the world, and wishing you all the best going forward.